How you doing, everybody? It's Sunday morning, time for another build. Steve's here. We're working on the club cart today, so I'm focused on fiberglass, and Steve's working on the throttle and the brake. So let's get started.
Throttle cable attachment, attaching the throttle cable to the pedal, and today I'm adding a return spring. So I've already welded on this little tiny tab. It's really probably hard to see under the spring. There's this little piece of rod I welded on here that the spring just loops onto. There it is. So now the spring is attached here, that little bracket. That returns the pedal, and then the return for this will be on the motor end for the cable end. But this is the pedal section. The next step is to install the brake line. So we've already started routing it. I'm going to route it around the body, around the pedal, and out the back. So making some progress.
Alright, so my focus today is on the fiberglass that goes on these foam components. We've got all the shaping done. Here's the rear tail, that's ready to go. I had to create a little bit deeper section here because we're going to use this honeycomb material. I buy it down at the metal shop. They sell it in, I think, 2 foot by 4 foot sheets. It's 1/2 inch thick, and you can see how it'll set down in here. It looks like a radiator. And then we'll have a little piece of aluminum that creates the X. While I was in my container snooting around for Christmas items this week, I came across the old plug for the BMW. And you can see here where I had added foam after I had shaped it. This allows for the fiberglass to be a little long. This is the trim line right here. Well, I'm doing it a little bit different on this, where I've added the plywood, and the plywood is the trim line. So the plywood remains on the car, the fiberglass wraps around and attaches to it, but the foam will go away. So today my goal is to, I'm going to wrap it with wax paper, which is what I did here. You know, if I ever have an accident, I've had 3 or 4 people run into the BMW, and I ever needed a new cover, I could do a new one. That's why I've used the wax paper, so I can make a new cover later. So I'll show you my progress as I move along. Okay, so I have my first piece wrapped, the tail, lower tail section. It should work out okay. I'm using wax paper and Scotch tape. And basically, I just lay it on here and tape it down. And I'll just keep going until I have it all covered. And that will allow the fiberglass to release. Somewhere here I have a spray-on mold release, which I'll also spray on here. Because when I pulled the fiberglass cover off the BMW, it stuck a little bit because the resin seeped through the paper to the foam. So I learned that lesson. Mold release will help. So continuing on.
So I'm making the fiberglass mesh template for the tail. I'm just going to get 2 layers. I've already cut the first one. So we laid it over and traced around it and gave us an extra inch around the whole thing. So as we lay this down, it's going to hang off a little bit. We'll trim it off when it's done. Once it's done. So while this is all still dry, I'm making all the templates so that as we're working this stuff, we can just go right to running all the epoxy. So make it easy.
Alright, so we're getting ready to start using this West System epoxy resin. Here's the hardener. We're using the slow. And the beauty of these pumps is one pump of each one is the correct mixing ratio. So I've got 5 in there. 6, 7, 6, 7. And then I'll mix it up. And with the slow, I've used this before. You got hours of time to work it. All right, the resin is slowly starting to work its way through the cloth. And it's just a matter of laying it down. It'll push out all the little bumps in the fiberglass, and it should work out just fine. You can still reposition it. All right, so far so good.
All right, so this one's got its first layer of epoxy and fiberglass mesh. We learned a little trick early on when we had this release agent. It's really slippery if you try to put the mesh down and put the material through it. So we put a thin coat on the release agent first and then laid the mesh on top. That seemed to keep it from rolling all over the place. It still wants to move a little bit because of that release agent. If you're not doing a release agent, it'll probably stick a lot better. But right around the edges, we're having trouble keeping it down. But eventually this will tack up and harden up and it'll be just fine. So making some great progress today.
So here I've added the second layer of fiberglass, and it went on much easier than the first. So now I just need to wet it out, and I think I'll just go with two layers on this one. Well, I'd say we had a pretty good build day today. We managed to get a couple layers of fiberglass on all the parts, and probably another layer of fiberglass and certainly more resin to build it up, giving it room to sand down to a smooth finish. But this is a milestone, getting these parts in the works.